Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of Prep Your Standard NATO. Today's guest is Liz Jackman from Whiskey Wishes. Lovely to meet you, Liz.
Thank you.
All right, Liz, what is Whiskey Wishes?
Okay, so Whiskey's Wish is a charity organisation, so we're not-for-profit. We started in November 2014. It was approximately about nearly 2 months after Scott, who is the president, and my husband as well. So Scott's a veteran, and he had an assistance dog called Whiskey, who unfortunately passed away from cancer, and he had not received a lot of support or assistance when he had Whiskey. So we thought, with some friends and that we thought that we would actually start this crazy idea of starting a charity to actually help and support people who had their own dogs in the program, as well as provide dogs if they needed them as well. So we had a plan in the first year where we would only sort of do a prototype of a service dog, and so we'd only have one dog in our first year, and in the second year we would build it up to 3, and in our third year build it up to 6, and in our fourth year have 12, and then by the 5th year have 24 to 25 dogs. Nothing ever goes to plan, but it actually showed the massive need for assistance, particularly with dogs, and how much dogs, were part of that rehabilitation process for a lot of the veterans. So in our first year we actually had 10 dogs in the program, and we will be 5 years this year, and we have over 117 recipients in our program all over Australia. We have approximately 20 on our waiting list, and we received something between last week, for example, we had 15 inquiries, and yesterday, even though we were away, had 3. Yep. So that's how big it's this massive need. But probably around about in our second year, I was part of a PTSD conference where I spoke about the benefit of having a dog as part of the rehabilitation process. And we were approached by a policeman, and he said, what a wonderful thing you guys are doing, and if only, we had that support, first responders had that support. So we kind of went back and thought, PTSD is amongst a lot of services, particularly frontline services. So we decided then to include first responders into our program. So we now have veterans actually take up probably between 80 to 90% of the program. Second, fast growing is police in the program, but we also have like a firefighter, state emergency service responders, paramedics, and then last year we something we noticed through our page as well was that a lot of people were communicating and talking about correctional officers, and we had a lot of inquiries about that. They are kind of like the hidden frontline responders, and they suffer quite a lot, and particularly with PTSD. Is one of the fastest growing sufferers of PTSD that's very unseen. So we opened it up then for correctional officers with PTSD. And so we have 2 in our program now. But in saying that, we also do get a lot of people that, who have got, autism or PTSD from, other areas, not particularly from service or, but we had to kind of say, we're you have to have a point where you can only help people so much. And because we're volunteers, all of us are volunteers, and everything we do is in our own time. So I actually work. I have 2 businesses as well as this charity. And actually the charity takes up probably the biggest amount of time, because when you're dealing with over 100 people, you have to pretty much be on top of it. And they can call or message you at any time of the day, and we've always had this thing where if we can't get to them straight away, because obviously with work and that I just can't get to them all the time, and with Scott having appointments, so he's got his own mental health and rehab, because he was injured in Afghanistan, so he was medically discharged. So he's kind of exactly the same as a majority of the other veterans in the program, where he has to go through his own rehabilitation and everything. But he actually became a dog trainer when we first started the charity, and is now fully certified, and has also international diploma in companion animal dog training. So that became his rehabilitation as well, was in helping other people with their dogs and that. But they still suffer. Like, it's not... We don't say to people that it's the cure. We tell them that it's part of their rehabilitation, and we've seen a lot of success with a lot of the people in the program, where, for example, and particularly with, for example, Vietnam veterans, where the partners, like for many years, and we're talking like over 20 years maybe, where every time they needed to go out, or the partner always had to go with them. And we've now got people who gone through the program, and those recipients now will go by themselves, and the partners will say it's fantastic. They actually sit there worrying and going, I wonder if they can, and then they walk through the door and they're all happy. Yeah, everything was fine. So we look at that side and go, well, yeah, this is really working. This is what helps. They've got a beautiful bond with the dogs, and we have a lot of people who, as part of that program too, that we've found is a lot of them will actually go into hospital now and seek further assistance. But by being able to have their dog go with them, it's actually helped them a lot. And also travel as well. So they've been able to travel domestic, so they've been able to go and see their family comfortably, being able to travel with their dogs and everything. And I think the biggest thing is it's a distraction for them. So when they go through our program, we're putting up training modules and things like that for them to do. It actually distracts them, so they're not sort of sitting at home, worrying or anything. And a lot of them that have gone through after 12 months have actually said that they would like to do a training course and pay it forward, which we're more than happy to do. So we've actually got our first train the trainer, who's a veteran, and he's actually going to be starting in Queensland to actually become a trainer. So we've funded that for him, and we'll start our second one in Canberra. So, yeah.
Great, that all sounds amazing. And as a long-term dog lover, I know what dogs mean to people, but how do they actually help the veterans with their PTSD?
Yeah, look, I think dogs naturally have a really, really good bond with their humans. They make you happy. Mm-hmm. They don't discriminate either, and they know when you're feeling sad. And Scott used to talk to Whiskey all the time. It was his mate, and it just made him feel comfortable wherever he went. And I think a lot of these dogs provide that comfort. There's a lot of it's emotional support. But what we also found that by training them to do specific tasks, so when people apply for the program, we actually ask them 3 specific tasks that they would like their dog to do to help them mitigate their disability. And what we found was, with a lot of veterans, there's a lot of hypervigilance and hyperarousal and things like that. So that means that when they go out into a lot of public areas, they feel very... they're very hyper-vigilant, they're always watching their back. But if they've got their dog with them, they don't have to. Their dog actually does it for them. The dog is able to warn them, and when they can pick up their stress levels, so they'll actually lean into them. But also a lot of the dogs have helped with things like retrieving medication, with a lot of the mobility. So we have a few veterans who have got mobility issues, so the dogs actually learn to pick up things for them, it might be their mat, their cane, whatever. So we look at what it is that they actually want, but I think the biggest one is I want to feel comfortable when I go out and do it by myself. So they actually want that independence. So these dogs have actually provided a lot of the recipients in the program with independence, the ability to go out by themselves without having to have someone else do it for them.
Yeah, I think independence is definitely a big thing there. My mum was one of the first ones in WA that had a Whiskey's Wish dog, and it changed her demeanour completely. She went from not leaving the house to going out to the beach, which she never does anyways because she's not a beach person, but going out to the beach and going out to the shops and just going out by herself. So it was a huge benefit to her.
And actually your mum was one of the ones that it started with the Back to Work program as well. And what we've found too is that a lot of the bases, and in particular we've got one in Victoria and one in Cairns and one that started at RAF in Amberley, are very, very keen to do the Back to Work with the service dogs. We also did a successful one with New South Wales Police, where even though a lot of these are like veterans or recipients and that may not be able to do what they were doing before, but still being able to work and have the support of their dog, has been a really, really big factor in, kind of getting them, yep, look, this is okay, I can do this with the help of, my little buddy, and that's been really good. And we're actually going to be having some meetings and talks with a lot of the Back to Work programs, so that's a really big part of the rehabilitation. So I'm really, really happy that that's sort of come about. We've done a lot of protocols and procedures on the hospital and with flying, with Virgin Airlines and Jetstar. So we actually assisted in the procedures for Jetstar with having service dogs on board, and also talking to businesses and schools about service dogs. But one we're really keen to do now is the Back to Work. And I think your mum was probably one of the, that sort of start of it, and I think she may have found it a little bit stressful at the start, and we were still finding our feet on a lot of those things, but she handled it really, really well. Yeah.
I think the only thing that was really stressful for Mum was the fact that she ended up being allergic to poor Gypsy.
Yes, that was so sad. I remember when your mum told me. But I will tell you, Gypsy's has a lovely recipient, and Gypsy's very much looking after this particular recipient as well. Yeah, so if we could have found her a dog that was hypoallergenic, we would have. And that sort of came about as well, where originally when we first started the program, we were providing the dogs. But you kind of learn with anything, like when you're going through, I've never run a charity before in my life, so you're kind of really finding your feet and, learning a whole heap of new things, and you look at what works, what doesn't work, and you kind of go from there. What we found was that a lot of people had their own dogs, and when they were looking for assistance, and a lot of the other organisations provided the dogs, they sort of said, but my dog's perfectly okay. And in actual fact, because that person's actually built a bond with that dog already and had that bond for a long time, and that dog has probably done quite a few tasks without even realising, all we do then is say, well, we have a lot of criteria that we test them for, particularly in public access. And if they're okay for that, and we test, so for example Sandy has just done hers, so she is now able to go into public access areas. She's got a period of time before she can go for full public access, but now she's able to do that. Yeah, we just now have a lot more people coming in with their own dogs, which is great, and we prefer that, and we've now moved away from providing dogs because we found that wasn't as successful. And particularly because if things didn't work out, we actually ended up back with the dogs. We were able to sort of match them with another person as well, but sometimes that doesn't always work out either. So we decided that from now on, anybody that doesn't have a dog, we will help source a dog. And we have a lot of breeders as well as rescue places that say, we've got a lovely puppy and that would be really, really great for a veteran and blah, blah, blah. And so they'll either donate it or we'll adopt it, and then we will donate it back to the recipient so that they can have the dog right from puppy and it's theirs. So, yeah.
Great. Well, I think it's a great project, and I'm not just biased because Mum did so well for Mum. I've seen it do great things for a lot of veterans. So if anyone's looking for a dog or if they want to get involved with you guys, how can they do that?
Okay, so we actually had closed off applications in September because we were inundated. And like I said before, we're volunteers and a lot of it's self-funded, so we don't actually receive any grants or government funding. The way we keep running, I think that's a question most. So how do you keep running? It's from amazing people that will do fundraisers for us, and we've got one coming up, the 3rd annual PTSD baton ride in Victoria, which raises quite a few funds for us. Those sort of things help with kind of keeping us going, because when you join the program, we provide all the training is at no cost. All the equipment is at no cost. When we do the accreditation, so we come over here, we do the accreditations at no cost. So, and, you know, we would ideally like that, you know, things like food, vet bills and things like that, though we do have part of our funds are like crisis funds, where if we have a veteran, a recipient that is finding it a little bit tough with vet bills, we will look after them, so we will actually pay for that. People who sort of come into the program, because one part of public access is the dog has to be desexed, and if they can't afford it, we will actually cover that cost for them as well. So we kind of had, like, you know, over 100 people, and we were kind of very, very stretched. So we decided to kind of cut off applications in September until we kind of were able to look after the ones that were currently in the program, make sure that they were, you know, kicking along okay. And we weren't thinking of opening up until about May or June, but it's kind of come a little bit earlier, where we will be opening them up again at the end of February. But in saying that, people are able to apply, so they can go onto our website, so www.whiskieswish.org.au, and there is a contact us form, or they can actually email the secretary, so secretary@whiskieswish.org.au, and Simone, who is our secretary, she'll actually provide all information and application. That then comes through to us, and then we review it and then send out a full application. So there's quite a few steps, but in that first step, Simone's able to provide how the process actually works, what they have to do, how long it is, and stuff. So, yeah.
Great, there you go, guys. So if you are looking for a dog, there are opportunities coming up. If you are able to gift a donation or some money to help, greatly appreciated. Thank you so much for taking the time to talk with me today.
Thank you, Ashayla.
This podcast was edited, published and produced by the RSLWA. Head to www.rslwa.org.au for other content. Make sure to subscribe to this podcast and follow us on Instagram, Twitter and Facebook.